800, 1200 characters. The supermarket doors slid open with a sigh, releasing a gust of cold air that smelled faintly of bleach and oranges. Claire's hand tightened around her son's fingers as they stepped inside, their reflections multiplying across the polished floor. It was supposed to be a quick errand. Nothing more. Milk, bread, and a little peace of mind. Yet, every aisle hummed with a static she couldn't place, as if the building remembered something she'd rather forget. Ethan tugged her sleeve, pointing toward the candy aisle, his small voice bubbling with excitement. She smiled faintly, her lips trembling as she turned to follow him. But the voice came from behind her. Her heart paused. When she looked down, her hand was empty. The store was silent, except for the soft drone of the lights above. And in the reflection of the glass doors, she saw herself alone, her son nowhere beside her. Claire's voice echoed down the aisle, thin and breaking, calling her son's name with increasing desperation. She checked behind shelves, between displays, under the humming freezers where frost clung to the tiles. Shoppers passed without glancing her way, their faces blurred, their movements soundless. Her pulse roared louder than the supermarket music, each breath shallow and frantic. "Ethan," she whispered again, softer this time, as though afraid of being heard. At the end of the aisle, a worker stacked cereal boxes, humming to himself. She hurried toward him, asking if he'd seen a little boy in a red shirt. The man froze, eyes blank, and slowly shook his head. "You came in alone, ma'am." The words barely left his mouth before the lights above flickered again, washing the colors from everything around her. Claire stumbled toward the customer service desk, words spilling out faster than she could shape them. "My son, he was right beside me. He's gone." The cashier's expression remained flat, polite, unchanging. "Do you want to make a report, ma'am?" Her voice was soft, detached, rehearsed. Claire glanced at the security monitors behind her. Each small screen reflected aisles, customers, motion, but not Ethan. Not once. Her fingers dug into the counter as she demanded they check again. "He was here." I was holding his hand. The woman blinked slowly, pity flickering across her face. Then something else, unease. "We'll call the manager," she murmured. Claire turned, heart pounding, as Daniel Mercer appeared from the back office, his eyes narrowing with a quiet recognition she couldn't understand. Daniel guided Claire into the manager's office, his calm voice steadying but distant. "Let's check the footage," he said, unlocking the door. The small office smelled of dust and cold coffee. On the monitor, static danced before the image cleared. The entrance, the candy aisle. The moment she walked in, Claire leaned closer, her breath fogging the screen. She watched herself enter, basket in hand, talking, smiling, to no one. The empty space beside her twisted her stomach into knots. "That's not right," she whispered, pointing. "He was holding my hand." Daniel said nothing, only rewound the footage. Over and over, the same lonely image played. Claire, alone, her lips moving to a child who wasn't there. She staggered back, the room spinning. "You don't understand," she gasped. "He was here." The air in the office thickened until Claire could barely breathe. She backed away from the monitors, the hum of electricity vibrating through the walls. "That can't be real," she muttered, clutching the red dinosaur. Daniel's voice came softly. "Mrs. Donnelly, are you sure your son was with you tonight?" The question hit like a blow. Her eyes snapped up, wide with disbelief. "Of course I am. He was..." She stopped. The words stuck in her throat. Somewhere deep in the store, a child's laughter echoed faintly, bouncing through the intercom system. Both of them turned toward the sound. Daniel's calm broke for the first time, his face tightening. "Stay here," he said, moving toward the door. But Claire was already gone, running into the bright aisles, chasing a voice only she could hear. The aisles had changed. Claire realized it the moment she turned back toward the dairy section. It wasn't there anymore. The signs hung in different order. The paths curved where they shouldn't. She tried to retrace her steps, but every turn led her deeper into sameness. Her shoes squeaked on spotless tiles that seemed to stretch forever. Mirrors of her confusion. From somewhere nearby came the faint rhythm of a child's humming, a melody she used to hear at bedtime. She ran toward the sound, her breath sharp and shallow. It faded just before she reached the next corner. Only silence greeted her, thick and humming like the store itself was listening. "Ethan," she whispered again, but the name felt swallowed by the air. Claire reached for her phone, hands shaking. No signal. The clock at the end of the aisle read 9:47 p.m. Yet the intercom repeated a recorded message announcing, "Store closing in 10 minutes. It had been saying the same thing for what felt like hours. She passed the same aisle sign again. Frozen goods, though she'd already crossed it 3 times. Her breath fogged in the refrigerated air as she turned another corner and saw herself at the other end, or someone who looked exactly like her, walking in sync, carrying the same basket. The reflection smiled half a second too late. The basket dropped, groceries spilling like an echo. Claire's knees weakened. She ran the other way, hearing the clatter repeat behind her. A beat later, her voice cracked as she yelled for help, but no one answered. The air smelled faintly of burnt plastic. Somewhere overhead, a speaker popped, then whispered a faint child's giggle, followed by static. Claire turned in circles, whispering Ethan's name, her voice trembling between fear and longing. Then, footsteps. Small, quick, soft. They darted between aisles, too light to belong to an adult. "Ethan!" she cried. The footsteps stopped. A slow creak came from the freezer door beside her. She turned, breath caught in her throat. On the glass, a single word had appeared through condensation. "Mom." Her knees buckled as the word faded, replaced by her own blurred reflection staring back. Eyes hollow, lips quivering. Claire stumbled backward, pressing her palm to her chest as she gasped for air. The sound of the intercom buzzed again. "Clean up in aisle 4. The voice was calm, mechanical, but it was Ethan's, every syllable cracked with childlike tone. She turned, scanning the aisles, the sound bouncing from everywhere at once. "Ethan! Where are you?" she shouted, spinning in place. The aisles rearranged themselves. The shelves seemed to shift slightly, their geometry wrong. Boxes faced backward, labels blurred. She ran toward the nearest intersection and slammed into an invisible wall of glass that hadn't been there before. Her breath fogged against it. On the other side, she saw herself again, staring, terrified from an aisle that shouldn't exist. She could no longer tell what time it was. The supermarket's ceiling lights dimmed, then brightened in slow pulses. Like breathing, her footsteps echoed twice. Once real, once delayed. She moved carefully now, whispering Ethan's name softer each time, as if afraid her own voice would turn against her. From behind a display of soup cans came a whisper. "You left me." Claire froze. The voice was Ethan's, but lower, older, burdened. She turned the corner slowly and found nothing there except an empty shelf and her own reflection trembling across every can's metallic surface. Hundreds of tiny versions of her, all staring back, wide-eyed, haunted, repeating her guilt 1,000-fold. Claire wandered deeper into the supermarket's heart, where the lights dimmed to a murky amber. The floor reflected faintly, rippling as if she walked on water. Every surface mirrored her from impossible angles, her eyes multiplying, her movements fractured. Somewhere behind her, glass creaked like ice splitting under weight. She whispered Ethan's name again, the word trembling between prayer and plea. A whisper answered. "You didn't stop." Her body froze. The voice came from her reflection, not from the air. In the glass of the refrigerated wall, her mirrored self looked back with wet cheeks and bloodless lips, whispering words she couldn't bring herself to hear twice. The reflections began to move even when she didn't. One turned its head as Claire froze, Another reached toward her from behind the glass. "Stop!" she gasped, backing away. But her mirrored selves only smiled faintly, each carrying grief she refused to feel. The hum of the store grew louder, drowning out her heartbeat. A child's laughter echoed faintly from inside the walls, but it wasn't innocent anymore. It was knowing. Claire pressed her hands to her ears, but the sound came from within her skull. She opened her eyes and found her reflection standing closer than before, its hand pressed against the glass, lips forming a single word. "Remember!" Claire staggered backward until her shoulder hit a display stand. The world tilted. The overhead lights dimmed, then surged white-hot. Images flashed through her mind. Rain, screaming brakes, shattered glass. The sound of Ethan's toy hitting the dashboard. Her breath caught in a sob. "No," she whispered, pressing both palms against the freezer door. The reflection looked back with sympathy, no longer defiant. "It wasn't my fault," Claire said. The reflection's mouth shaped the same words, but her eyes, those eyes, told a different truth. Behind her, somewhere far, an alarm began to wail softly. A heartbeat of machinery, warning of something she already knew. The supermarket shuddered as if exhaling. Shelves rattled, fluorescent tubes flickered in waves. Claire rose slowly, her body trembling with exhaustion. The reflection now stood perfectly still, but Ethan's image in the glass began to move, walking away down a mirrored aisle that didn't exist. "Wait," she whispered, stepping forward. The reflection mimicked her motion, but Ethan kept walking, smaller and smaller until his outline dissolved into the endless brightness beyond the glass. She pounded her fist against the door, sobbing, "Please come back." The reflection didn't move. For the first time, she saw not a supermarket behind her, but rain against windshield glass, red brake lights bleeding into night. The glass cracked. A hairline fracture spread outward like lightning, splitting her reflection in two. The hum of the store turned to a steady, mechanical wail. Claire fell to her knees, sobbing openly now, the truth forcing itself into her lungs like air she couldn't refuse. "I didn't mean to," she cried, rocking forward, the red toy pressed to her chest. The reflection's lips moved one final time. "You know?" The crack widened until the image shattered completely, shards raining onto the tiles in a frozen cascade of silver. When she looked up, the aisle was empty. Only the echo of her child's voice remained, soft, distant, forgiving, fading into the low, electric hum of the void. The world had grown still. The store lights stopped flickering, their constant hum replaced by the quiet buzz of electricity, like breath held too long. Claire sat on the floor beside the broken glass, her body shaking. Somewhere far behind her, heavy footsteps approached. Daniel's voice echoed softly, carrying an edge of fear. "Mrs. Donnelly, come with me." She didn't move until his shadow fell across her hands. He offered her something small. A security tape. "You should see this." His tone wasn't managerial anymore. It was pleading. She followed him back toward the office, her shoes crunching over shards that shimmered like frozen tears. The manager's office felt smaller now, suffocating. The hum of the monitors filled the space like whispers. Daniel slid the tape into the recorder, the screen flickering to life. The timestamp read April 12, 2023, 9:48 p.m. Claire's stomach twisted. The footage showed the parking lot in rain, headlights gleaming off puddles. Her car, her old silver sedan, rolled into frame. She watched herself climb out, distracted, phone in hand, arguing with someone unseen. Then, Ethan's small figure darted after a drop toy into the street. The brakes screeched, light exploded, and the camera froze in static. Claire's breath left her body. The tape continued, showing police lights flashing red and blue across slick asphalt. Daniel paused it there. "You've come here every night since," he whispered. But you never see it. Claire's scream never came out. It died in her throat as tears blurred the screen. Her body convulsed with small, gasping sobs. No, 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 that's not... She looked up at Daniel, her eyes pleading. He was with me. Tonight, I talked to him. Daniel's expression broke, pain and guilt flashing through it. You talk to him every night, he said softly. We see you on the cameras, walking the aisles, holding nothing. Claire's world tilted, the office around her dimmed to black at the edges, the hum turning low and deep, like thunder underwater. She shook her head violently. No, he's here. The sound of small footsteps echoed down the hallway beyond the door. Both of them turned toward it. The hallway was silent, except for the faint tap of dripping water from the ceiling. Claire stepped out first, her breath shallow, her shoes squeaking softly. The supermarket looked different again. Darker. Endless. Aisles rearranged like dreams shifting under pressure. Somewhere near the frozen section, a faint figure stood. Small, unmoving. Ethan, her voice cracked. The figure turned slightly. The toy glinted red in his hand. Daniel's voice from behind her trembled. Claire, he's not... But she didn't hear the rest. She walked toward the boy slowly, whispering his name as tears fell soundlessly to the tile. Each step forward dimmed the lights around her, as though the store itself feared what came next. When Claire finally reached him, she stopped an arm's length away. Ethan's eyes lifted, not afraid, not angry, only calm. Mom, he said softly. Her knees buckled. The toy in his hand glowed faintly, casting a red hue on the tiles. Behind her, Daniel whispered her name, but she couldn't hear him over the rush of blood in her ears. I'm sorry, she breathed, reaching out. Ethan smiled faintly. You don't have to say it, he said. The lights above them flared white, the air filling with a soft, static hum. She blinked, and he was gone. Only the toy remained, warm in her palm. When she turned, Daniel had vanished too. The supermarket stood silent once more, waiting. Thunder rolled from nowhere. The fluorescent lights trembled, then shattered in bursts along the ceiling. Claire shielded her head as glass rained down, her sobs drowned by the rising roar of wind. Wind that shouldn't exist inside walls. The supermarket aisles twisted, contorting like serpents in panic. Shelves groaned. Products tumbled to the floor. Alarms wailed. Ethan! She screamed over the chaos. Her voice was torn apart by static and thunder. Somewhere ahead, the red glow of the toy blinked once. A heartbeat in the darkness. She ran toward it, slipping on broken glass, driven by the only sound she could still trust. Her child's fading laughter carried on a wind made of memory. She reached the end of an aisle that split into dozens of mirrored copies. Every direction led to more reflections of herself running, falling, crying, infinite versions, doomed to repeat her mistake. Claire stood trembling, spinning slowly, desperate to find the one path that wasn't a lie. Please, she whispered, eyes darting across endless shelves. In one reflection, Ethan appeared beside her, holding her hand. In another, he turned away. She stepped forward and pressed her palm to the glass. It rippled like water. I'm ready, she said softly. The reflection smiled, nodding once. Then, one by one, the other images began to dissolve, until only one aisle remained, leading forward into crimson light. Lightning split the ceiling, revealing the impossible sky above. Dark, swirling clouds twisting over the aisles. Rain poured down in heavy sheets, soaking Claire as she walked toward the red glow at the far end. Her hands trembled, but she didn't run anymore. Ethan, she whispered, voice calm. I'm here. Each step echoed like thunder beneath her. The shelves around her melted away. The walls breathing, the tiled floor turning to black water that reflected the storm. The glow grew brighter, shaping into the outline of a small child waiting beneath a single flickering light. "Mom," he said softly, his voice steady and clear. "Come home." Claire waded through the rising water until she stood before her son. The store's walls flickered in and out of existence, collapsing into dark voids beyond. She knelt, her trembling hand brushing his hair back. He smiled faintly, warm, forgiving. "I waited," he said, voice soft as the rain. "I know," she whispered. Her body shook with sobs that felt more like surrender than pain. "I never meant to leave you." Ethan tilted his head, studying her. "Then stop leaving," he whispered. The words hit deeper than thunder. Around them, the water stilled, the storm slowing as if the building itself had taken a breath, waiting for her answer. The storm fell silent. Every sound stopped. No thunder, no wind, no hum. Just the drip of rain from broken beams above. Claire drew Ethan into her arms. His small body felt weightless, fading against her chest. "It's okay, Mom," he whispered. "You can wake up now." Her tears mixed with rain as she nodded. "I love you," she said. His reply was just a breath. "I know." Then he was gone. No flash, no scream. Only warmth leaving her hands. The red dinosaur toy remained, glowing once before dimming to gray. The water lowered, reflections stilling. The store was whole again, but empty, silent, waiting for morning. Silence. The storm had drained from the walls, leaving behind a pale blue stillness. Claire stood alone, soaked and trembling, the red dinosaur toy heavy in her palm. The aisles stretched in straight lines again, normal, almost comforting. She felt weightless, unmoored, like her shadow had forgotten her. Then, from the far end near the emergency exit, a faint red glow flickered. She walked toward it, every step echoing softly. The closer she got, the warmer the air became, as if the building itself was breathing. And there, beneath the pulsing light, stood Ethan, calm and bright against the sterile dark. "Mom," he whispered. "You don't have to be scared anymore." Her footsteps were barely audible as she approached him. Each step forward felt lighter, as though gravity itself was loosening its grip. "I thought I lost you," she said, her voice trembling but steady. Ethan smiled. The same soft smile she remembered from their mornings together before everything fractured. "You never lost me," he said gently. "You just stopped looking in the right place." The words hit like mercy disguised as truth. Claire knelt, lowering herself to his height. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean." He placed a small hand against her cheek. "You didn't see the light," he said softly, "but it still saw you." The emergency lamp above flickered, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Can I come with you?" Claire asked, her voice barely more than breath. Ethan shook his head softly, his eyes filled with warmth rather than sorrow. "Not yet," he whispered. "You still have to wake up." Her brow furrowed, confusion flickering across her features. "Wake up," he nodded toward the exit light, glowing brighter with each pulse. "You've been trying for so long to find me," he said, "but you were the one who was lost." Claire's tears spilled freely now. The hum of the light above deepened, vibrating through her chest. She smiled weakly. "Then show me the way." Ethan stepped back toward the glowing doorway. "You already know it." Ethan turned, placing the red toy on the floor between them. "You can keep this," he said softly, "so you'll remember that it's real. Even when you wake up." Claire nodded, her tears falling quietly onto the tile. She reached out to take the toy, but her hand passed through light, through warmth, through him. "Ethan," she whispered, voice cracking. "I love you." He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "I know." The emergency lights flared once more, flooding the aisle in white. For the first time since the accident, she didn't look away. She let the light take her, not as punishment, but as peace. When the light faded, the store was quiet again. Only the hum of the refrigeration units remained. Claire stood alone near the exit, dry now, her coat unwrinkled, her reflection clear. The red dinosaur toy rested in her palm, cool and still. She looked around one last time, the aisles neat, untouched, peaceful. "Thank you," she whispered into the silence, though she wasn't sure who she was speaking to, her son, the universe, or the quiet part of herself that had finally forgiven. The automatic doors slid open, and dawn spilled in. The air outside smelled of rain and beginning. For the first time in months, Claire stepped into the light without fear. Morning light spilled across the parking lot, pale and endless. The supermarket stood still, empty, the hum of its lights blending into the quiet of daybreak. Claire sat in her car, the driver's side window cracked open, a faint breeze lifting strands of her hair. The red dinosaur toy rested on the passenger seat, catching the early sun. For the first time in months, her hands didn't shake. She breathed deeply, eyes tracing the horizon as memories passed like soft shadows. Laughter in the kitchen, bedtime stories, rain against glass. The guilt that once crushed her now felt distant, like a storm long past. She whispered,
"Good morning, sweetheart." The words didn't echo. They simply stayed, and that was enough.
A soft knock came at the window. Claire turned, startled, then relaxed when she saw the familiar face. "Detective Avery, you're here early," he said, voice gentle. She nodded, rolling down the window. "Couldn't sleep," she murmured. His eyes flicked to the toy in the seat beside her, then back to her calm expression. "It's been a year today," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was reverent. He studied her, something like relief softening his usual stoic face. "You look better," he said. Claire smiled faintly. I finally remembered him the right way. They sat in silence for a moment that felt infinite. "Do you still go inside?" Avery asked softly. Claire's gaze drifted toward the store. The automatic doors slid open briefly as an early worker entered. The motion smooth, ordinary. "Not anymore," she said. "He's not there now." Avery nodded, understanding without pressing further. "You know, the cameras never recorded anything strange," he said. "Just you, standing there like you were waiting for someone." Claire smiled gently. "I was." She turned the key in the ignition, the engine humming quietly, a sound as soft as her breath. "But I'm done waiting." Avery closed the car door gently. "Take care of yourself, Claire," he said. She nodded, eyes shining but steady. As he walked away toward his cruiser, she looked down at the toy again. Her reflection stared back in the small plastic curve of its surface. But this time it was smiling. She placed it carefully on the dashboard, sunlight spilling over it like blessing. For a moment she thought she heard Ethan's laugh. Faint, bright, untethered. She didn't turn to look. Some things weren't meant to be seen anymore, only felt. She whispered, "I'll see you when the light changes," then shifted the car into drive. As the car rolled forward, the morning opened before her. Streets washed clean by rain, the sky pale and wide. Claire exhaled, a deep, freeing breath that felt like life itself returning. In the rearview mirror, the supermarket receded into light, no longer a place of haunting, but of remembrance. She turned on the radio. A soft melody filled the car, something Ethan used to hum. The sound carried her forward, steady and unbroken. She smiled through tears that didn't hurt this time. The world outside glowed with forgiveness. Somewhere, unseen but near, a small voice whispered, "You made it, Mom."